I won't fool myself. And I can fit in, but what difference will that make? If I could speak more clearly, would you further understand? And if I took my place in the palm of your hand, could I still draw my own fate in the sand? I think not. Another freak out, I'm losing my mind. 'Cause it's been split into two opposite sides. Half on the left, the other on the right. I want to build a bridge and find my place in the middle.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of Lunch Out Loud Ottawa. The band you just heard there was called the Gallop. The song, Broken Record. So you'll be seeing them at Blues Fest Saturday, July the 6th. You can see them again tomorrow night if you want to see them in Ottawa at Cafe Detcuff. They'll be playing new tunes with the likes of the Mohawk Lodge and Tim Chasen. You could also see them June the 1st with Little Stella, who I hope to have very soon on the show, at the Rainbow. The website you can catch them at is thegallop.bandcamp.com. You can record their untitled album there for free. It took about 2 years to write and record. It also has 15 guest musicians on it, which is pretty incredible. Gabrielle Giguère, better known as Her Harbor, is on background vocal, and she's also on Blues Fest, and we'll be featuring her a lot shortly.
Nice.
So once again, my name is Nick Pachuski.
And I'm Andrew Miller.
And so we have a special guest with us today, our resident Lunch Out Loud accountant, Mr. Chris Finlay. How are you?
Excellent. Yourself?
Not too bad. Great office. We're at his office right now.
Thank you.
Before we start, I just want to get a few things out of the way. Last night I was very touched at going to the Mercury Lounge where...
that sounds rough.
Our resident Luca Fiore, who is an excellent filmmaker for a lot of the bands, and he does a lot of short films. He recently had in February, a lot of his equipment was stolen. So as a filmmaker or someone without insurance on it, it's a very huge blow to your job and livelihood. Luckily, we have such an incredible community in Ottawa that all banded together to raise kind of a fundraiser at Mercury Lounge. The Peptides were playing, so it was a lot of fun last night, and he did raise almost $5,000 to replace the equipment, so he's going to be back out there making great videos for us in the future. So that was pretty
that's
sweet.
Too bad he didn't have insurance on anything, eh?
So yeah, but he does now. I did get word he does have it now going in the future. So if you ever think that apartment insurance or house insurance for your valuables is a bad idea, just take an example of this. A fire almost broke up out in my apartment, and I got it right after that. So definitely go into doing something
right
like
after that. Don't wait for bad things to happen.
Don't do it like I did. Another couple of things that I just want to go over that's happening in the community. At McNabb Park yesterday, they released the plans for how they're going to change in the future, and there was about over 100 gathered in support of the new outdoor skate park from Antique Skate Park. Had that kind of running.
That's awesome.
And it looks like they will be going ahead with that. And
are they getting rid of the lawn bowling center then?
That is replacing with
Oh,
lawn
that's
bowling.
just too bad.
That's terrible. I know. At 2013, I was getting ready to turn 70, so I could go lawn bowl right there. It's going to be very disappointing.
Well, downtown area needs a skate park, so
absolutely. So there's 3 other skate parks in the Ottawa region, so that's going to be our 4th, and it looks phenomenal.
Outdoor ones, that.
Outdoor, that is, yeah. Another thing that happened, I went to the Gladstone open house because they're going to start construction in July. So it's going to be very interesting to see the redesigned Gladstone. I know everybody has a problem driving down there because of the pothole situation. I think for every 1 millimeter, you got 2 potholes. I don't know how that works.
That's pretty consistent all across Ottawa right now. But
it is, but Gladstone is just a horrible street, and it's going to be a lot better to see that changed. A very interesting planning committee went on this past Tuesday. It started at 9:30 in the morning. and it ended at 12:30 the next morning. So that is a hell of a long meeting.
I guess so.
To get a lot of things done. So, but
They plan for the next 100 years?
Yeah, but hey, a lot of things came from that. So you're going to be looking at a new condo in the future, 18 stories at the corner of Carling and Bronson. So there was a lot of contention from different residents about that. But you know, it's evolution of a area. So you're going, you know, when you buy a house, you're not buying that house with no restrictions on ever having zoning or ever having a condo going up beside you. So it's kind of buyer beware in that sense.
Yeah.
You know, you can't...
Well, and I mean, our city can't grow any further like we discussed before. I mean,
Exactly. We're trying to get that to stop.
Especially the way gas prices are these days. Come on.
Exactly. Exactly. And a very interesting thing, where the Dow's Honda is at the basically Dow's Lake at the end of where
Carling and
Preston is. You're going to be looking at possibly two condos that are over 40 stories high in the, you know, I think maybe 10 to 15 years. I don't see it happening for a long time. But
do you know what the highest is now?
I think it's a condo?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they're
28.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they're really walloping whatever we got right now.
Yeah, no, the 40s are going to be a lot bigger. So that's going to be very interesting to see in the future, but it's going to happen, and you know what? Well, it'll put us on the map as, you know, a totally different city. So, Chris Finlay, sorry for having to make you wait through all of that.
No problem.
Let's talk taxes in a bit.
Yeah, for everyone listening, this is going to be very interesting. You might think, oh, we have an accountant on. This is not going to be one to listen to. We're doing this because we're in your exact shoes. You know, we're 30 years old, around that. And, we're starting our careers going there, and we want to make the better decisions doing taxes. Right?
We want to know how to screw the government, and, they've been doing it to us for years. So let's figure out how we can get some of that money back in our pockets.
Exactly. So that's why we have Chris here.
Yeah.
And as always, before we start talking about accounting and all this, we want to get to know him, put a human side to your friendly accountant. So,
what do you do, Chris? You're born and raised in Ottawa? You've been here your whole life?
I'm born and raised in Ottawa. I grew up in the east end of the city. Moved downtown for a number of years while I attended university. I actually moved out of my parents' house when I was 19 because it had about enough of suburbia at that point in time.
Yeah. So you originally grew up, out near Orleans? Or?
Right in Orleans, right in the heart of downtown Orleans.
High school.
I went to Corrine Wilson out in Orleans, Terry Fox Elementary. So it's the older part of Orleans, I guess, if you will. It's not up the hill where everyone is now and call that Orleans. That to me was always Navan or Cumberland even.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little different now there than when it was when I was growing up. So I moved downtown, and now I'm out in Barrhaven with an office just kind of west of downtown.
How are you liking Barrhaven so far?
Barrhaven's great. With 3 young kids, it's an ideal community to bring my kids up. It's lacking a little bit in the ability to walk to your neighborhood pub or walk to your neighborhood restaurant. Mm-hmm. But as you get older, and maybe a couple years older than 30, a couple though.
It might be better that you can't walk to your pub.
Yeah, maybe safer is a better word for it. Yeah.
So where did you go to university? Right in Ottawa U? Or?
I was at Ottawa U for university, which is why I moved downtown. I was also working in a record store in the Rideau Centre for pretty much the entire time through university. Music World.
Really?
Yeah.
That was on what? Second floor? Or, no, that was HMV, right?
Well, it was on the second floor at one point in time, or maybe the third floor. It's now on the main floor, or I don't think it's even there anymore. It's right next to where the Shoppers was. Actually, I think it's a liquor store now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, music stores kind of phased out after a while once pirating took place.
Yeah, it's a very different world now. Yeah,
yeah, that it is.
And you got your bachelor's there, and any other schooling after that?
So got my bachelor's degree there, and then after that, it was all focused on the designation. So I got my my U.S. designation first, my CPA. Then I got my Canadian designation, my CA. Did a bunch of in-depth tax programs with the Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants, picked up my Certified Financial Planner designation, and a couple more since that.
Wow.
Jeez. So how long did all those steps take then? I mean, normal people, you'd go to school for a couple of years or whatever, and then bam, you get your degree. But by the sounds of it, you got to take a few extra years of getting some extra credits under your belt sort of thing? Or?
Yeah, in theory, the university portion is 4.5 years when you factor in the co-op. So you finish in December, and then the following January you start studying for your CA exams, and that's a year of your life down the toilet, basically. I mean that in the most positive way possible, obviously.
Yeah, and CA stands for Chartered Accountant, for those that haven't figured that out.
Yes, sorry, that's probably a good thing to mention.
And you're working at a firm while you're studying as well.
You're working at a firm, yeah. You do your tax season, you're working crazy hours, studying crazy hours. You write your first exam, about 70% of people pass that one. Then you go away for a month, the month of June, you're out of town. You go to Toronto and you study at York University. Basically, it's a full-time job while you're there. Write an exam at the end of that. About 70% of the people pass that. Assuming you pass those first 2 exams, you then find out the end of July. You take the rest of the summer off and you write. The year I wrote, it was 3 exams over 3 days. The first exam was 1 question. It was 5 hours long. The second one was 3 questions, 4 hours, and the third one's 3 questions, 4 hours. And then if you pass that, then you got about another year and a half of collecting professional work experience before you actually get your designation. And that's just one of the designations.
Wow. So I'm assuming there's got to be a fairly high dropout rate of some sort then.
Well, it's not so much a dropout rate. They just weed people out. So there's the first exam, which is multiple choice. You lose 30%. The summer school, you lose about 30%. The year I wrote, you lost another 40%. On the final exam. So by the end of it, maybe 30% of the people that started end up finishing it and getting their designation.
How did my brother get through this? It amazes me every day.
Right on. So clearly you like living in Ottawa. You've been here your whole life. You haven't fled the city yet. What keeps you here? What else do you do for fun? Your spare time and whatnot?
What keeps me here these days is a lot of family ties. My parents are here in town. My brother's since moved out of town. My wife's parents are not far from the city. The reason I love it here so much is because I have the ability to travel elsewhere. And it always makes me appreciate Ottawa that much more. During my career, I spent a month working in Calgary. I was seconded out there by the firm I was working for. Great experience, had a job offer to move out there. But again, because of the family ties I had here in Ottawa and the number of people I knew, all the connections, it just made more sense to stay in Ottawa. But these days, I spent a lot of time this winter skiing with my oldest daughter, which was great.
Oh, that's nice.
Which hills?
Mostly at Cascade.
Okay.
Fortune, because that's where her lessons were. So we go up for the day. She spends 2 hours in lessons. The rest of the time we spend skiing together.
Yeah. Well, that's a great spot to learn too. I mean, and it's nice and close to the city. You're talking 15 minutes out of downtown. So
that's it. It's
pretty prime.
It's a little bit further from Barhaven, but
well, that's true. That is. But,
yeah.
What about favorite restaurants or something like that? Or you have
night spots,
hot spots, whatever. I mean, you have your brother coming in from Nashville to visit. Where are you taking him out to show him a good time or whatnot?
You know what's funny with 3 kids, all under 5 and under. I honestly don't get out much. When I do get out for dinners, my wife and I usually like to hit the Westboro area. The Hintonburg Public House is great. Petit Bill's right in Westboro is awesome. Wellington Gastropub, those are some of our favorite locales. Too, they're just, it's nice because you can park your car, you can walk, you can have fun in that neighborhood, and then you can also get a decent meal out of it. But as far as night spots go, if my brother's in town, usually he's showing me where to go. He doesn't even live here, so there you
go. You were mentioning your brother's a bit of a musician now, and that's why he fled off to Nashville.
Yeah, so he moved down to Nashville about 5 years ago. Check out his website. I think it's either TF Band or Trevor Finlay Band. Yeah, I should probably know these things before interviews, but there you go.
Has he ever played at Blues Fest?
He played at Blues Fest a number of times. He opened up for James Brown. He was here when he opened up for Kid Rock. Actually, he was one of the openers for Kid Rock. Cool. And usually when he's got a big show like that, I get the good fortune of being the quote band photographer, which basically gives me backstage access. Yeah. And one of the sights I've never been able to get out of my head is the sight of James Brown wearing curlers in his hair before the show. It's wild.
Nice.
So just one more thing, I guess. One other hidden gem that you would introduce somebody that has never been to Ottawa before. Where would you show them?
You know what? That's there's too many things to mention, I think. You look at the canal on any winter or summer day, and you just look at the activity going on along the side of the canal, people biking, people running. The fact that they close Colonel By for Sunday Bike Days all through the summer. You guys have mentioned Blues Fest probably a number of times. Blues Fest, I think, is one of the greatest things we've got going in this city. You can do pretty much anything at any point in time in the city. It's one of my favorite aspects of Ottawa is the fact that we seem to celebrate every single season. I remember going to
Yeah.
Tulip Fest and all the different festivals like that and just checking out bands constantly. Used to see the Headstones. I probably saw them 15 times. I'm really hoping when they get back together they'll come back through Ottawa, but perhaps I'm dating myself a bit.
No, they'll be back. They'll be back.
You're talking about biking and running, physical activities and whatnot. You're looking in pretty good shape. You've been working out a lot. I know we kind of briefly talked about it earlier, but
Yeah, so I know you guys interviewed Tony Greco recently, and I
Yeah.
can't say enough good things about the program they've got there. I've been going to the Greco gym. There's one right near my office, and I try to get there Monday, Wednesday, Friday at lunchtime.
Yeah.
And the program they've got there, like literally, I lost no weight but dropped 5 inches off my waist. So it's
Wow.
it's
Feeling
just a
better,
phenomenal
feeling
program.
better, eating better.
Yeah, I've got a plate of vegetables sitting out here on my desk, which you guys have politely refused to eat. I might add.
Does it give you more energy with your kids as well? Like,
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And at this time of year, I need all the energy I can get because the hours tend to get a bit long. But yeah, having more energy, I had all kinds of knee problems from some of the vacationing, in quotes, that I've done in the past. And so it's really helped just rehabilitate my knees in a lot of
really,
ways.
it's helped your knees.
Yeah, it's surprisingly, because it's usually very high impact workouts, but because I've built up the muscles around it, it's actually helped more than hindered.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tony Greco.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And we'll just listen to one more song right now. We're going to listen to Don't Be Afraid from the Gallop and be right back.
With all your tax tips.
Absolutely. So join us in just a moment. Thank you so much. All right, so that was a great song, Don't Be Afraid from the Gallop. You can see them, of course, Blues Fest, Saturday, July the 6th.
Right on, and like we said, we're back here with Chris Finlay, chartered accountant. Hoping to get a little bit of tax advice. It is this season. Chris, you must be smoking busy. This time of year you're getting there.
Burning the midnight oil these days, that's for sure.
Yeah. Talk about a regular day-to-day of an accountant. Like, what do you do here all day? Do people wait until this time of the year before you're busy, or are you? Obviously, you're a little busier now, but on your regular day-to-day, like...
Yeah, so this time of year, it's a bit exceptional for me. Throughout the year, I spend a lot of time doing work for corporations and helping incorporated small businesses. But this time of year...
That being, what size of companies are your incorporated small businesses?
My biggest client probably does about $15 million in sales in a year.
Okay.
But as far as corporations go, it can be as little as about $50,000 in sales in a year, or even just filing nil returns for them, because even with no activity, you still have to file your corporate tax return the same way you would your personal tax return.
Yeah.
But this time of year, it's a bit longer. I actually did something this week I haven't done for years, and that's I fell asleep on my laptop. I was literally sitting in my kitchen working away. It was just a little after midnight, and I realized that I blinked for about 15 minutes, which, I haven't done that for a very long time. So it's great. Business is good. What can I say?
That's great.
So are you doing a lot of personal taxes at this time?
I do a lot of personal taxes. My average day these days, basically I spend my 9 to 5 hours, if you will, responding to emails, answering phone calls, helping my staff get the work done, meeting with clients, and then I take work home with me at night so that I can actually get something done. That's kind of what a typical day is, and I take a few hours off kind of in between my day and my evening so that I can spend some quality time with the kids, make sure they get to bed on time.
And then right back at it.
And then I get back to it, yeah.
Okay, so would you be able to give some tips now on to the average, 25 to 35-year-old, done university, they're doing taxes for the first time, their parents are not doing their taxes. They have several options. So you have a lot of banks are offering all all TurboTax and QuickTax online, and then you walk down, say, Bank Street, and you have a person wearing a nice little red hat, a Liberty Taxes, or H&R Block, or they could possibly go with an option of you. What would make sense for a person to go to each?
Yeah,
what would you recommend?
There's a place in the market for each of them. There's no question about that. I don't pretend even for a second to compete with the likes of H&R Block or Liberty Tax Services. They serve a different market altogether. People would come to me when they're looking for professional advice. You know, it's fairly straightforward with the software that's designed today to, if you have a T4 or an RSP contribution, you're working for the government or something like that, your tax return is about as straightforward as they come, and you could do that on your own without any issues.
So for them, you would recommend QuickTax or TurboTax?
If they're comfortable with it. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd recommend it. But
they're getting a lot easier every single year.
Yeah, they tend to have those interviews that they walk you through and ask you all the pointed questions. As soon as you have employment expenses, or you have a rental property, or you become self-employed, you've got a little business on the side, at that point in time, you'd probably want to look elsewhere. And that's where someone like me would come in. One of the things I see most often, in fact, I've got some fights with CRA I'm fighting right now, where CRA being the Canada Revenue Agency, people have claimed all kinds of expenses on their rental property, not realizing that some of the things that they've claimed aren't actually expenses. You know, if you put new floors in your rental property, for example, that's not necessarily something you can deduct right away. Sometimes you have to add that to the cost of the building, and then you recover that when you sell the building. So it's a very easy mistake to make. It's one of the grayest areas in tax law, and so that's where someone like me comes into play, because after my CA designation, before I even found out I passed, I was already registered for the in-depth tax course put on by the Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants. Did 3 years of that, and then about 2 years ago I did a further specialization which just deals with tax issues that owner-managers face with their small businesses. And so, you know, you don't get that kind of training when you go to a place like H&R Block, or you order the software online.
So there's not really any, like, for someone's personal taxes, if they don't have a rental property or any of their own business expenses, is there anything that they can use in their own personal lives to kind of take back down some of the taxes? I mean, I guess like the only one I think that I remember from, you know, being a bit younger would maybe like, you know, if you're paying for your child's schooling or something like that. Yeah. But is there anything else like that people might miss over?
Kids are a great deduction.
Yeah.
Between the daycare that you can write off, children's fitness activities, children's arts activities, just the extra credits you get for having children. You know, it
so
almost
should
makes
go
you
have
want to
some
kids.
kids.
It's an expensive way. You'll find that most of these tax tips, like if you want to save money, it's going to cost you money to do it. And so you have to kind of balance out saving money on your taxes versus cash flow. Gotcha. Donations are a great thing you can deduct. Most people will donate, say, $50 a year or something like that. If you can get that over $200 over the course of a year, then the amount of the credit that you get back from the government pretty much doubles or triples. It's somewhere in there. So the first $200, you get a very low credit, about 21%. Anything above that, your credit comes in at about 46.41%, give or take. And so the other thing with donations is if you only give $50 a year, then don't deduct it that year. Wait until you've accumulated up to 5 years worth of donations, put them all on your tax return at the same time, and your donation credit is huge.
That's great.
What about putting money into RSPs?
So RSPs are a bit of a double-edged sword, because of course you get the deduction now when theoretically your income's going to be higher. But what I'm seeing now is people who are on in their years and are looking at pulling money out of their RSPs are realizing, hey, you know what? I'm not in a lower tax bracket. I'm going to pay through the nose when I start pulling money out of RSPs.
Especially in the government with a lot of great pensions that you see.
Yeah, multi-million-dollar pensions that these people have.
Lucky.
Yeah, there's time and a place, right? But so yeah, like RSPs can be really good. But the other thing with RSPs that people sometimes don't realize is similar to donations. You make the contribution now. It doesn't mean you have to deduct it now. You can carry it forward 3 years, 4 years, as long as you want, as long as you're not contributing more than you actually have room to contribute. Gotcha. But, you know, if you know next year your year is going to be better, make the donation now if you know the markets are down. Let your money come up in value, and then make the deduction when your income's higher. You know, for someone in your industries where your income's very variable from year to year, that can be a really useful thing.
That's a great tip.
I got a question. For pricing for going to an accountant like yourself, would you tell a potential client up front, you know, how much it might cost for them? Is it based on a percentage of a possible return? Is it based on your hours that you put in? how do they trust the number of hours? Like what kind of stuff like that? What's
So,
going on with you?
all excellent questions. When you go to the H&R Blocks and the Liberty Tax Services of the world, my understanding is that they've got a fixed price per form that they have to fill out on your behalf, and they take it out of your refund so that you're not actually writing a check. I don't work that way. I'm not allowed to invoice based on the amount of taxes I save someone. So what I always do is I quote my clients a flat fee, and I say, this is the price it's going to be. I'll stand by that. If it turns out I've botched my estimate of how long it's going to take me, it's my problem, not yours. And so the other thing with that is I make myself available year-round for questions. If someone has a question about their RSPs, they can call me up in the middle of July without worrying about getting a follow-up bill every time we speak.
That's something excellent, because I've heard of a lot of accountants that will bill that 10 minutes, they'll charge an hour.
And,
That's the way it goes, yeah.
And I know you're now on Twitter. If anybody's
Indeed.
on Twitter, you can follow him at Chris Finlay CA. That's Chris, and Finlay spelled Finlay.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of great tax tips on there that I've been following. I've been retweeting them because you do have some great information. So what are some handy tips that you've kind of went over in the last couple of weeks? And I mean, again, most of them are revolving around people that either own their own businesses or have some rental properties. But what are some of your favorite tax tips that you like to pull out for people?
The thing I try to do most is actually make them somewhat humorous.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, tax and fun don't usually go well together. So I'm just trying to give very practical information, like that thing about the donations. I didn't get into how you can carry them forward, but I did say if you can hold off until you've got more than $200, then it's worth a bigger credit for you.
140 characters you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's it. And when you say today's tax tweet, then you lose like 20 characters right there. So I'm down to 120. A lot of people come to me wanting to write off their home phone for their home-based business. CRA's position on that is regardless, you would have a home phone, therefore all you can write off is a long distance over and above what you'd usually pay. I don't necessarily agree with that stance, but it is what it is.
With cell phones and Skype.
That's it. Like, who has home phones anymore? If you've got a
Very
home
rare,
security
yeah.
system, maybe.
Or what's this as a deductible expense? Guard dogs.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So there was actually a court case where someone wrote off the cost of feeding and taking his dog to the vet because he had this German Shepherd that he used to guard his home, and he got away with it.
No way.
It was tested in tax court, and it was considered admissible. Not 100% of it, but certainly a portion.
I mean,
of that
if you
was
got a
deducted.
pug, I'm sure it's not really going to fly for a guard dog. But
anyone who meets my dog.
you write my dog off for sure.
Okay, so let's because I know there are a lot of small business owners and a lot of graphic designers and creative types there's a huge movement in Ottawa starting all these new companies. When should they go visit an accountant like yourself versus, because they're looking at minimize costs because they don't have much money to start up, and they don't want to, they might be afraid. I know that a lot of them would be, you know what, I'm not even going to ask this guy, this chartered accountant. Sounds like so much money.
They might think that the costs of hiring an accountant are not worth the savings that they might end up getting.
They have no clue.
Whereas to me, I think it's the opposite. You might be able to save a whole bunch by coming to somebody's.
Typically, what I try to do with someone who wants to meet with me for the first time is I won't charge them for that initial meeting because, first off, I need to know if I can work with them on a going forward basis because I'm in my early 30s and I'm trying to build a practice that's going to be here for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And by the same token, whoever comes in to meet with me is going to feel the same way about me. Presumably we're setting up a long-term relationship. So I'd say the sooner the better. As soon as you even have that idea go through your head, I wonder if I should incorporate, that's the time to sit down with someone. If you wait until after you've set up your corporation, you might have missed an opportunity to do some income splitting with family members. And if you've got the right accountant on your side, they can tell you when the right time is going to be. Now, admittedly, accountants are going to be motivated to say, hey, incorporate now, because quite honestly, I make more money on a corporation than I do on a personal tax return. Having said that, I'm a very down-to-earth, realistic person, very practical. And if it's not the right decision for my clients, I'll be the first one to say it. But really the decision comes down to, first, do you want to limit your legal liability? If the answer is yes, then you incorporate. There's no question beyond that. The second reason you'd want to incorporate is because the corporate tax rate in Ontario is 15.5%, so 0.155, as opposed to 0.4641 if you're an individual. So on the first $500,000 of net income that you make, you're saving 30%. That's $150,000.
It's a huge difference.
It's a
sure.
huge difference.
Yeah.
So when you get to the point where you're making more money than what you need to live on, at that point, it's time to incorporate. Unless legal liability is a concern, in which case you incorporate sooner.
Oh, right. And are you mobile, or do you solely? We're at your office. Is that
Concourse Gate, 21 Concourse Gate, Unit 15, just off Colonnade South. And I am fairly mobile, not so much during personal tax time, but
Okay.
once April comes and goes, I try to get out of the office as much as possible and go see my clients.
Yeah, so a lot of the young companies are at, say, Invest Ottawa or Explorium,
Yeah.
or even downtown at the Hub, Ottawa. If you can do like lunch bag lunches and stuff like that, the brown bag lunches. Sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done sessions like that for a number of different people, and they're a lot of fun to do.
And you've been on CFRA as well, doing.
Been on CFRA a few times. Usually this time of year, I get in touch with Jason McIntyre a couple times, and he and I have some interesting conversations. The last one we did was on the benefits of incorporating an investment portfolio.
Okay.
Which is a fun one to talk about.
It's interesting. You're a very smart man. You know a lot, and hopefully people will add you on Twitter, follow your excellent tweets, and
That would be
Yeah,
nice.
again, Chris Finlay, CA.
yeah, definitely.
Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. But thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, I think we did good, guys. I think for taxes that wasn't too bad at all,
Wasn't
right?
that bad. That's, so will you stay with us while we talk some events going on this weekend?
Absolutely.
All
What do you
right.
got going on this weekend? Big plans for Easter?
Likely working, but I'll take Sunday off and do the Easter egg hunt with the kids. So
Right on. I'll
that's
be working
my favorite
too.
things.
I'll be working 3. All right, so we of course we got Easter going on. It's beautiful weather outside.
Yeah, spring's
Snow is
finally
melting.
here. It smelled like spring for the first time.
I
today,
love it.
felt.
Driving
I woke
around
up
with
and
your.
could smell it.
Hey, you drive around with your.
The windows were down the whole way. The tunes were
Love it.
bumping on my way here.
Love it. So tomorrow we got Creative Mornings. We had them on last week. So Ian Capstick is the guest tomorrow. That's going to be very interesting. If you're into great Icelandic music, we got Sigur Rós tomorrow night at
What's that again?
the
Sigur?
Sigur Rós. Have you ever
Alright.
seen?
No,
have
I
you
don't
ever
think
heard?
I have. No. I'm out of the
definitely-
Icelandic.
I'll definitely introduce you to
Group,
some
I
of that
guess.
kind of stuff. We got some NCAA basketball.
Oh,
That's
yeah. Me
what
and Nick
we'll
got
be
some money
watching.
on that. Go Michigan. Michigan is going to be taking down Kansas. Everybody heard
I have Kansas winning, and that's definitely going to happen. Tonight, I'm changing my bet to Marquette over. Marquette is going to beat Miami, so I'm going to make that change right now.
Yeah.
I'm also going to call Duke is going to win the entire thing because they are the
Duke is
best.
not winning nothing.
Anyways, next week we have a great show. We have Mandy and her partner from Ottawa Events talking about a lot of new things that's going on with OttawaEvents.com and Ottawa Kiosk and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be very interesting. The band next week, I forgot right off the top of the head because I don't have my internet right here. But
It'll be a good one.
I do know they're going to be good. You can always trust that. So thank you so much for joining us this week.
Let's play one last song since we forgot to announce the last song of the group last week.
And I almost forgot again today.
Conveniently enough, the song that we're playing right now is called Don't Forget. And again, that's from the Gallop. So we'll see you guys next week and have a happy Easter.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, guys.
It's really quiet.